Hello everyone, and welcome back to Marvel Rivals. So, I'm just letting you guys know right now, there's not going to be any gameplay in this series of videos I'm wanting to do. Obviously, many of us have been enjoying playing the game, but I think we've also gotten so caught up on playing the game, just log in, just start playing, that we haven't really taken the time to kind of look around and really soak things in and see a lot of what I've noticed is some interesting visual storytelling throughout the game, as well as other forms such as what takes place when it comes to the conversations between the characters that you happen to have on your team. But if you look around some of the maps, there's actually a good amount of interesting storytelling that's going on. In fact, on the Clintar map, when you start off on attack, a lot of people haven't noticed because they just stand at the door waiting to have the door open so they can go after the attack point. Or let me say that again. Ryan, to go attack the point that the other team is defending, they don't bother to turn around and look back and see what's behind them in the other room, which is like this gigantic symbiote heart. Because I was standing there, and I was hearing a heartbeat, and I was like, what is that? And I turned around, I realized there was another room behind us, and I looked, and there's this gigantic, what looks like a symbiotic heart. And I was just like, what? And I realized there is some interesting storytelling going on here when it comes to the maps and the characters and such. And what I noticed was when you go to these here, and you go to the lore portion, yeah, we've got this, but then there's stories here. Now, not all the stories, unfortunately, are available right now. They're going to be unlocking these later. I don't know when. They haven't given a timetable on this, but what I'm hoping is that these are going to provide more of an actual story. For each of these different things. I don't really know what some of these stories are, but I want to read them. Actually read them. By the way, there's actually incentive for you to do this. If you go to the achievement section, there's actually a portion here, an achievement here in the Galactica's Guide portion, where you're actually encouraged to go ahead and actually read the stories, the hero stories, and the team-up stories. So what I'm referring to is not just the stories that are here in the heroes sections, but also these stories here. So in the case of the video today, we're going to be doing Adam Warlock. I'm going to do this alphabetical order, basically. But in the case of Adam Warlock, we would have his own story, as well as the team-up story that he's involved in, which would be this one right here, Guardian Revival. Why he's got this with Mantis and Star-Lord. So Mantis once transcended her physical form, becoming pure energy when her time as the Celestial Madonna concluded. Peter Quill once became Master of the Sun, unlocking even deeper power through his alien physiology. Now, Adam Warlock has found these two to be the perfect vessels for his rebirth abilities, for their ancestry bears greater power than they may ever know. So I get to come back to life now? That's totally sweet! Like having my favorite song on this endless replay. And it makes sense considering what we find out. They also point this out in the MCU movies. I even recently watched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 just to get some, make sure that I actually had seen it and got that extra bit of story and context, that they address the fact that both Mantis and Star-Lord are, of course, the children of Ego. And so they're actually brother and sister. And they have that lineage from their dad. Now, they I guess they made a point in the MCU that they kind of lose that when they do defeat Ego in the second film, Volume 2, but that doesn't mean everything about that physiology part of them is gone. I think I said that wrong, but you guys get the point I'm saying, is that just because Ego is gone doesn't mean the part that they both inherited from him just is gone forever. And whether or not Adam Warlock was properly portrayed in Volume 3, that's... I've heard some people say that they did him dirty in the third movie, and maybe they did. I will say this, Adam has become one of my favorite healers in the game to play. I actually have put quite a bit of time in. I think his healing is not that bad, and at times, the big res ult he can do can just be really game-changing if you're able to time it right. There are times where I find myself holding on to it much longer than I'd like, just because, like, you're kind of like going, okay, I need to wait for, like, something big, something to happen, you know? But at the same time, maybe the other team is waiting to do their stuff until they know that my ult is on cooldown. I don't know, so. Speaking of the third Guardians movie, this is actually the skin from that. The genetically engineered Adam Warlock wields powerful quantum magic, enabling him to connect and heal souls with a gentle touch. When the time comes for his allies to unite, Warlock stands as the unwavering epicenter of cosmic justice. Which is funny, because that's not really how he was portrayed in the movie. He kind of was sent to go kill the Guardians, instead of being like this, like, embodiment of like, peace and justice and such, but I don't know, maybe that's something they decided to do differently with the character in the film compared to how he is in perhaps the comics. But by the way, this is the new skin that he got in this season 1, this Gothic Return skin. It's certainly not bad. It actually has kind of a organ music when you use his ult. It's actually kind of cool in that regard. But, and this was of course his baseline skin here. It's not bad. I don't know. I think the fact that he's just wearing these shoulders and the cape rather than, like, something, like, you know, I don't know, it doesn't quite look right to me compared to, say, this skin here. I actually really like the outfit that he's wearing here. I like the look of his hair. He has a couple of MVP. This is the MVP with this particular skin here. Kind of similar to a scene from the film. This is this is the emote that came with it. You can actually, like, use this and it'll just keep going. There's, like, it doesn't end unless you end it yourself. So it looks like he's like charging up to go Super Saiyan. You know? Anyways, yeah, those are the abilities. That's not really the thing. As you can see, I've already gotten him to captain rank with, you know, usage of time, healing, KOs, assists, and the, you know, res is, yeah, with the ult. So I'm going to be working my way to try and get, I like that master portrait, or the lord portrait, excuse me. But, yeah, anyways. Adam Warlock was created to be the perfect specimen, able to manipulate powerful cosmic forces. He represents the full potential of what we could one day become. Until then, he stands alone as a shining golden beacon of all that is good within us. When the time stream entanglement struck, Adam Warlock instinctively encased himself in a cocoon. During his prolonged quantum slumber, his keen cosmic senses detected a terrifying threat that could plunge the multiverse into an abyss. Upon awakening, this malevolent force led him to the darkest reaches of the known universe, the planet Clintar. So the only story unlocked right now is this first one called Golden Sail. In the beginning, there was darkness. The universe was no more than an endless void, a vast expanse of silent nothingness, until celestial forces shaped the stars and nurtured life into being. Just as the universe began in darkness, so did I, within a protective cocoon from which I burst forth fully formed, a golden guardian designed to bring peace to the galaxy with my vast cosmic might. But there is a cycle to life, and just as I was born from this cocoon, now I have returned to it, much sooner than I could have anticipated. My cosmic awareness sensed that something was amiss, a great disturbance in the fabric of time and space itself. As multiple realities and timelines became entangled, I reflexively shielded myself within this protective shell. If I truly hoped to fulfill my ultimate purpose, then I would have to bide my time and build my strength for the trials ahead. But what would they be? Even with my deep connection to the primal forces of the universe, I was both literally and figuratively in the dark once more. As I slumbered within my restorative sheath, it became a wayward vessel floating through the cosmos. I was no longer in control of my own destiny, merely a passenger adrift on the currents of fate. The silence out among the stars brought a sense of tranquility I had not experienced since before my birth. The serenity would not last long. Adam! A voice called my name, echoing not in my ears, but inside of my mind. Whoever was calling me was reaching out from across the void with a psyche even more powerfully attuned than my own. "We are not so different, you and I," the voice continued. I'm going to assume this is, oh gosh, what's his name? The leader of the symbiotes on Clintar. Like Venom's boss. He was in the third Venom movie. I'm actually blanking on his name at the moment, but I'm going to assume that this is him, so I'm going to try and see if I can do his voice when until we get a confirmation on this. "We both slumber while the multiverse burns around us. Some gods we are." As the powerful words pulsed within my brain, an image began to form in my mind's eye. Oh, never mind, it's probably not him, because it's apparently a man confined to a sacred chamber. Not quite a cocoon like my own. He was nearly as old as time itself, yet similar in many ways. The bearded man within was frail and weak, devoid of power. But he was not always so. As my mind was flooded with brief glimpses of his storied past, it became clear that he was once a mighty king that ruled a glorious realm for centuries on end. Wait, hold on. Oh, is this Thor? "Time is something that I have never feared," he said inside my mind. "Not until now." Or is this Loki? No, it's Odin. Never mind. "Not until now. Time and space are twisting around us, and I am trapped here within the Odin sleep, unable to do a damned thing about it." The Odin sleep? Of course. I knew the voice was familiar, even if the man himself no longer was. It belonged to the Allfather of Asgard, mighty Odin. Had he fallen to the same forces that had caused me to reflexively retreat into my cocoon? "Nay," Odin replied, reading my own thoughts. "I was brought low by the machinations of my own son, the trickster known as Loki. The foul child has usurped the throne of Isgard, and is set to destroy our proud legacy for his own selfish ends, yet again." Did he say Isgard? How curious. But the proper name of his realm was the least of my concerns. While the rage that the All-Father felt about his son's actions was palpable, there was something more beneath it. A deep concern that spanned far beyond the realm he once ruled. Excuse me. "You too are preparing for a battle when you awaken, Golden One," Odin said. "And while my son may indeed test your mettle, he is not but a distraction from your true enemy. There is a darkness in the cosmos, Adam, one far deeper than that of our slumbers. I have felt it trying to creep its way into my realm, even into my own dreams. Should it be set loose, I fear that it will corrupt all it touches, snuffing out the stars themselves until nothing remains." What could he be speaking of? I called out to Odin for an answer, but his voice had muted to nothing more than a distant echo. As my cocoon drifted far past the embattled realm of Isgard, I left a small fraction of my soul's energy behind with the sleeping Odin, a hint of light to keep the darkness he spoke of at bay. I prayed it would be enough. Now that my cosmic awareness had been fully awakened, I could sense another empire on the horizon. This one was not nearly as ancient as Odin's realm, yet its own god seemed just as eager to call my name. "Warlock," she said with a growl of disdain. "You have come a long way to die." Was I being threatened merely for passing through this space? How rude. "The intergalactic empire of Wakanda shall not harm you, traveler, but those beyond our borders will not be nearly as kind. Of that, you have Bast word." Bast, the panther goddess, a member of the Orisha, a pantheon of deities worshipped by the people of Wakanda. But last I recalled, Wakanda was merely a nation on the planet Earth, not an interstellar civilization. Could I have drifted into another reality? More precisely, Boss interrupted, other realities have drifted to you. This time stream entanglement has brought us together from across a multitude of planes. What is left of each universe is converging into one, as if we have been gathered. Gathered? For what? For the feast. As Boss snarled her final words into my mind, it became clear that her divine presence had somehow been corrupted. Could she have been tainted by the very same darkness that Odin warned me of? I had no way of knowing, as my journey across the spaceways had already continued deeper into the heart of this strange patchwork galaxy. Child of the light. A third voice suddenly echoed within me. This one I could identify without hesitation. It spoke with such raw power that it could only belong to a celestial, an ancient being spawned at the dawn of time. But yet, even though its words passed through my consciousness with tremendous force, they were softer than other celestials I had encountered. Muted, faded, like distant memories. You would be wise to listen, lest my fate end up being yours as well, the celestial implored, though I had little choice to give it anything less than my undivided attention. As you know, we Celestials were born at the beginning of all that is, it continued, but we were not the first. There was a primordial force that came before us, a creature of pure darkness, so powerful that he could strike down any who threatened to shed light upon the endless oblivion he ruled. Even the Celestials themselves? I struggled to imagine a foe so formidable. Few can wrap their minds around his nihility, and yet here I am, slain by his sword, with nothing left of me but an empty husk and the echoes of consciousness. But there was more than just the remains of a fallen celestial in the void beyond my cocoon. I could sense that now. There was also a hint of corruption, not unlike the one that had tainted Bast, but this was not found in the disembodied mind of the slaughtered celestial. Rather, it lingered on the great being's lifeless body, like an infected sore that had been festering for millennia. You feel him too, the voice echoed. His tainted touch has stained my corpse for eons, but now, as time collapses around us, he has awoken once more, eager to revel in the oncoming oblivion. I have called out to others like you, great cosmic forces, ancient warriors, even the gods themselves, for help in containing his eternal blackness. But they have either retreated or succumbed to his poison. Perhaps you will fare better. Hoping the Celestial was right. Sorry, Null, that's who it was. I was reading ahead thinking that that's who they were talking about. I couldn't remember. Null, that's his name. I couldn't remember his name. Hoping the Celestial was right, I reached out with my mind, desperate to identify the source of this cosmic impurity. But my thoughts became clouded as I heard the Celestial stream a final warning. Beware, child of light! He has found you. Who? Who has found me? The Celestial did not answer, but another voice did, with a tone 1,000 times darker than the blackness within my cocoon. No! As he spoke his own name, I could feel his dark tendrils digging into my mind. This ruler of the void, this king in black, had awakened somewhere, and was dragging me towards him. Try as I might, I could not escape his grip. Do not give up hope, child, the Celestial said, its voice rapidly fading. You will not be alone. Suddenly a burst of cosmic fire erupted through the heavens, producing a flash so brilliant that it permeated the walls of my cocoon. The light lasted only a second, but its unusual shape forever burned itself into my mind. A majestic bird, its flaming wings spanning across the cosmos. Jean Grey, is that you? Before I could process what had happened, the vessel that was meant to protect me now hurtled through space towards a destination unknown. My body was still confined, but my mind was in a heightened state. Where there had once been blinding light, now darkness and despair had slithered their way in. I was overcome with images of the horrors that Null had once committed, and those he had yet to unleash upon the universe. I could see his past and his future, But what of his present? That, it seemed, was shrouded in mystery, a void greater than Null himself. I'm curious how much of this is going to be touched upon when we get to Venom in this series. Suddenly, my journey across the galaxy came to a violent end as my vessel made impact against a most unusual surface. By the way, can I just say, in regards to, just since I just brought up Venom, wouldn't you all like to see some more symbiotes in this game? Like Carnage, for example? Just saying. If they're going to touch upon Null and Clintar, I'm just saying. Upon a most unusual surface. Was this a planet? No. No, I could feel it writhing around me, as if it were alive. And more, I could feel Null's sinister presence, closer than ever. Wherever I was, he was as well. Before my cocoon could be dragged beneath the churning sea of oblivion surrounding it, a single crack appeared above me. Where before there was nothing, now there was the faintest glow, the faintest hope. I pushed through, emerging from my cocoon to gaze upon the surface of a world teeming with alien life. And as my mind touched their hive mind, it all became clear. This was Clintar, the planet of the symbiotes. It was here that Null was once worshipped as a god. It was here that his own followers imprisoned him eons ago. And it was here that he was biding his time, regaining his strength, in hopes to break free and claim his prize once more. Perhaps he had dragged me here to snuff out my light before it could drown out his shadows. But he made a grave miscalculation. I broke free first, and as I stood upon Null's planet-sized prison, I made a solemn vow to do anything in my power to make sure that his infinite blackness would not go unchecked. In the beginning there was darkness, but in the end there will be light, and I shall be the one to help it shine. I'll tell you what, this makes me wonder. Now, unfortunately, this is the kind of thing that I don't think we could see in the MCU happening anytime soon, because, well, Sony is kind of interfering with that. Now, I will also say I have not seen the recent third Venom movie that they put out. I was so put off by the way they handled the second film, especially with Carnage, that I just lost interest in that series. And just didn't even see the third one. I probably will, just because I know Null is briefly in the movie. I think he makes a cameo in like 2 scenes, possibly. But let's just say, I'm sure there are some of us that would not mind seeing them bring Null into the MCU as like an actual big villain, because from what I've heard, Null is pretty high up there when it comes to power tiers amongst like big villains. Like, we usually think of like really high tier powerful villains like Thanos or even Galactus. I think I've heard some people say that Galactus would absolutely, take down Thanos, if Thanos didn't have his Infinity Gauntlet, like in one of those like versus videos. I've seen some people put that out. In fact, I've even seen a video talking about like, because we always wondered about like Darkseid and Thanos, and they were like, yeah, it wouldn't even be close. Darkseid would absolutely smush Thanos. So, which I guess also gives kind of a different perspective on the different tiers of power level in DC compared to Marvel, but that's probably also depending on which version you're talking about. Are we talking about the movie versions, the cartoon versions, the comic versions? If there's anything I've learned, is that just because you see these characters in one version this way, it doesn't mean that's how they're always going to be in every version. Like, even in the comics, there's different versions of these characters that will just either be differently powered or act differently, just like, it depends on which version of the character we're talking about, But, yeah. So that's part of Adam Warlock's story, as well as the story involving Odin and Null, which is going to be also part of what's going on here. And we're going to probably have more of this in the other stories. It's also gives us more context and information as to why we are on the Clintar planet in this game. That one Clintar map, which I don't know if they plan on doing any more with that, but we'll see. I'm kind of like interested, because right now they're focusing on the like whole Dracula in New York thing for this season, but I'm honestly curious about how much more they want to push when it comes to the stuff involving Null and Clintar and the symbiotes, you know? I think that could be interesting. So that was the first story. You know, unfortunately, like I said, I just cannot, if I click on these, it says, coming soon, stay tuned. So I cannot be able to actually, like, read the rest of these, unfortunately. I can only give you guys the first one. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know, just separate each of these into videos because reading can, of course, take a toll on your throat. So we'll be continuing, like I said, mainly alphabetically. I am going to try and see if I can save the Fantastic Four for last, since we haven't even gotten both Ben and Johnny added into the game yet. They're on their way. They're going to be here in a couple days. But when they do, then I'll go ahead and have the four of them. But up next, we will be reading the first story of Black Panther, which I imagine we will be touching up on what's going on with Bast, because what's going on with Bast? Well, maybe we'll find out. Stay tuned.